even in the West, you probably come across Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita has been quite common in the Western world for many decades. When I was a student in the 1960s, we came across the Bhagavad Gita in our college. So it's been quite known, more now than before, no doubt, but quite known to people all over the world for a long time. And for those of Hindu origin, of course, it's probably the most prominent of all the various writings and teachings. There's hundreds of commentaries in different languages. Many philosophers for centuries have been commenting on it. European scholars, American scholars later on, commenting on this incredibly amazing, whatever you wish to call it, philosophical, practical, not just philosophy, but the practical application of philosophy. So let's look at some verse from Bhagavad Gita. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Oh, we're going to sing a little bit first. And I don't know if this song is available on the screen. Is it there? Jai Radha Madhava? There we go. Usually we put a Jaya in front of the line there. It's just Radha Madhava. So you're welcome. Our system is, if you can kind of understand it, is that usually whoever's singing or leading sings alone and everyone else listens, and then everyone else sings and maybe I listen. Like that, that's usually the way we do it. We're not going to make a big issue, but that's usually the system. And the translation is also there if you want to go through it yourselves. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. 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 Gopijana Balapa Girivardhari. Gopijana Balapa Girivardhari. Gopijana Balapa Girivardhari. Gopijana Balapa Girivardhari. Yasodhanandana Rajajanarandana. Yasodhanandana Rajajanarandana. Yasodhanandana Rajajanarandana. Yamuna Tira Panachari. Yamuna Tira Panachari. Yamuna Tira Panachari. Yamuna Tira Panachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. 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 Gopi Janabala Girivardhari Gopi Janabala Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Rangana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari 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 Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtadhar Sadashli A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Shrahadas Thakur Ki Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ki Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda Ki Gaur Premanandi Hare Krishna. All glories to all of you. Hare Krishna. Okay. My name is Janananda Das Goswami. I'm from England. I'm visiting Australia for a few weeks and traveling around a little bit. We've been to New Zealand, and most of the time I'm in France or Europe, and sometime traveling. So we just happen to be here today, and we're from. Young man here, Rasi Kanandi, is traveling with me. He's from New Zealand, across the water there. Sarvamanga, she's kind of from here and there, but originally from England also. And this young man here, he's from Brisbane, Australia. I can't see who else is behind the screen. Oh yes, the young man here, he's from the Punjab, but he lives in Sydney. And he's also traveling with us. And others I can't see.
No one's behind the screen now.
There's no one there?
No, just Kalia for a bit.
Kalia is a devotee at the back there named Kalia. He's from here. He's lived here, I think now for 70 years. You've lived here in New Gokul? It seems like it. He's been here a long time anyway. And he's also from Australia. Doesn't matter where we're from. One of the main teachings of I guess any real spiritual scripture will give this simple understanding that when we say we, most people will refer to something related to the body or the mind at most. But when we say we, we're referring to the conscious entity within this body, the person within the body. Here we go. Those holy shoes. And not so much the body. The body may have been produced or appears in a certain tract of land, and we may call it English or Nepali or Australian or whatever. But the living being, especially in this book, the Bhagavad Gita, helps us to understand that the living being, the soul, term in the West we call soul, in India they call Atma. Atma means the atomic, eternal. conscious being giving life to the body and the mind, like that, is beyond and above these designations. The soul is eternal. There's not English, American, man, woman, Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, atheist, scientist, doctor, or whatever we designate ourselves. The soul is way beyond these designations. So one of the, is there a chair? There's a chair here, Bhagavat Prabhu. You have a chair? You sure? Where? Oh, yeah. Okay. Is that chair okay? There's no back on it. There's no back on the chair. You okay like that?
I'll just roll back.
You'll roll back, okay. We'll all roll back one day. We hope we roll back to our origin, back to our spiritual origins. So these designations, we're reading, by the way, if you haven't cottoned on, we've just arrived, we're reading today a little bit from Bhagavad Gita, since there's about 15 or so guests here this morning, and the topic at which we're reading the Bhagavatam is quite an intensive one. So I thought we'd make life a little bit more, hopefully anyway, a little bit more, say easier to relate to, digestible. Sometimes it's hard when we're, it's like your little boy. What's his name? Pardon? Lehad? Neha. Neha Prabhu? Haribol Neha? Haribol. I don't think he can eat 20 gulab jamuns this morning. Little hard for him to digest, huh? Maybe one. But so you don't give him what he can't digest, huh? Maybe he can't eat samosas yet, I don't know. You give him what he can digest. So similarly, our preceptor, our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, he brought this message to the Western world in 1965. Now, not many of you were probably born at that time. Some of us were, so to speak. At least we were in this body in 1965, but we were not aware of what was going on. When he left India, he was a bit from, you could say from Bengal, and he left India in 1965 with a mission. He had no, he wasn't saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. He had a mission. What was his mission? His mission was to try to serve his spiritual master, his teacher, who requested him to take this message of Bhagavad Gita and the chanting of the holy name, particularly Srimad Bhagavatam and other scriptures, to the Western world and share it with people. Whether you take it or not is your choice. This is voluntary. And he brought this message of love to the Western world with various intentions. That was one. And other intentions which you could say were more, I can't say universal, but maybe a little bit more in people's minds, to bring peace and unity. This was two of the words he used as to his mission, peace and unity. Of course, most people's idea of peace is a material adjustment. The real peace is a little different. It's when when we actually understand our own nature, who we actually are. Then you're no longer disturbed trying to find yourself, or let's say, enjoy oneself in this material world. One is satisfied within. So he brought this message, and unity is only to be found. We cannot find it. You will never find some degree of unity, of course is there, but we will never find the unity we're looking for by any amount of United Nations endeavor. It's a good idea, and other different efforts which to try to bring unity amongst people, unity amongst religions. We have inter-religious dialogues, but there's no real possibility of unity as long as we're identifying ourselves with this body and seeing everything through our body or our mind, through our senses, because we all see it different. Every single person sees situations differently. There's nothing particularly wrong with that. But what is missing is the unity or the the unified understanding of things. So, and that's lacking, and we see today, although the original intent of religions was not that, of course it wasn't, the original intent was to bring unity, but unfortunately in the course of time or whatever, we see that even there are so many divisions, even amongst one religion, not to speak of so-called different religions, although the root is the same, because of this strong identification, without the realization, it will create this kind of misunderstanding. And people may try to make an artificial kind of effort to bring unity, but there's not real unity there, because unity is only found on the spiritual platform. A simple example we could illustrate, which our spiritual master Srila Prabhupada would sometimes give us, was there's a lake down there, and you may have noticed, I think it's over there somewhere, there's a big lake. And if you take every one of us, if we were to go down there, each of us have a stone in our hand, okay? Now, we're not going to throw it at each other, don't worry. We go down there with our stones, and we throw them into the lake. And obviously, you can understand what the reaction will be, isn't it? What will the reaction be?
Ripples.
Many ripples. But there will be a lot of clashing also of the ripples, isn't it? Because each one of those stones is like a center. The circles, each one of us is like a center. We try to make harmony, we try to make peace, we try to find unity and so on, but there's inevitably going to be clashing. Whether it's between nations, between family members, even in our own minds there are clashes. Isn't it? You know, sometimes we're confused in our own mind, we're almost fighting in our mind over a decision or whatever. And what to speak of nationally or amongst different genders, sometimes even genders, sometimes amongst different whatever our beliefs in life are. We quarrel with each other over philosophy sometimes, we quarrel over political ideologies, we quarrel over religious identities and all kinds of things, races, colours. There's so many reasons, we could say, which are artificial, but they do nonetheless, artificial meaning they're not eternal, they're only temporary situations, but we fight over them and cause so much suffering to ourselves and others. So Prabhupada, our spiritual master, and every self-realized soul knows beyond this that the only real solution is the spiritual one. However, having said that, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also explains so many, let's say, society structures which will facilitate, which will bring about a more beneficial environment, a more unified environment, a more unified and peaceful environment, ultimately so we can cultivate or understand more deeply our spiritual identities. Unfortunately, society today is not organized in a very congenial way for spiritual life. Maybe not everyone agrees with that, but from our experience it's not. We're educated primarily in the bodily concept of life. We're educated that the goal of life is a material goal, to enjoy material sense gratification or something like that. We're bombarded with no end of propaganda for, basically materialism, material life. And you could go on and on. But it's basically a very materialistic environment which we live in. And the result of that, as anyone can understand, is the ever-spiraling stress, anxiety, fear, anger even, greed and lust and whatever, different things. And of course there's many good things are there too, you could say, or at least good intentions. But the world is pervaded with these various unwanted emotional experiences. And that's another thing on top of the already existing designations which divide us all up. So when we understand our real designation, now you go down to that lake and we all go together, we carry one stone, and we throw one stone into the lake, you're going to have ripples. but there's no clashing. There's no disharmony there. There's no friction. And you may be on any one of those waves. We're not the same. Every one of us has our unique individuality. But there's unity there because the center is the same. So this is the real intention, you could say, of not the ultimate intention in one sense, but it is an intention to bring this unified center in our lives. There's much more to be said about that. I'll just read a couple of verses here from this chapter in the Bhagavad Gita. It's the fourth chapter. The fourth chapter of this eternal literature, or this eternal knowledge, we should say, is known as Divya Gyan. Divya Gyan. My pronunciation may not be, of course, it isn't correct, so you may not understand those terms. You may or may not. But Divya Gyan. Divya means transcendental, above the material energy. Just like now, perhaps there's a clear sky I can't see from here, but some days it's very cloudy, and you will not be able to perceive what we call the sky. You will not be able to perceive the sun. You may be able to perceive some of the effects in the form of light coming through the clouds. But we're under the clouds, isn't it? Under the clouds. So when you go above the clouds, you're above the clouds. It's like you transcend the clouds. So we're under, as is described in the previous chapters a little bit, and later on, how much we're under the influence of the material energy, every one of us. We're being more or less manipulated by the modes of nature around us. Not the soul exactly. The soul is a witness to these maneuvers of our mind and body, which are under the influences of the material energy, which is a result of our karma. It's explained here in the third chapter, fifth chapter of this book, and so on, how the material energy works and the living entity is acting according to the particular body we've got, and so on and so forth. So in this fourth chapter, Divya means to be transcendental. What is Jnana? Knowledge. Transcendental knowledge. We have no end of phenomenal. Phenomenal means within our purview, within this material world, phenomenal knowledge of this material world. We pursue this as much as we can, for whatever reason, whether it's the quest for, certain, removing ignorance of the creation, or whether it's to try to increase our pleasure or avoid suffering, or whatever it is. Different types of paths of non-material knowledge are there. But rarely do we come upon the subject of noumenal knowledge, or knowledge beyond the material world. I don't think many schools in the world today teach knowledge beyond the material world, if any. It's very rare. Universities, schools, colleges, and wherever you go in the world, it's the same thing. We do in India, Nepal, China, Russia, America, Australia, France, anywhere. It's the same basic thing. It's material knowledge. And there's very little beyond that. So transcendental knowledge, not material knowledge. It is also related. And that's another secret of understanding how it's not like black and white like that. Is understanding the connection between the energies which we're presently experiencing and the spiritual energy. They're connected, and that's also described how we can see them for what they are, and not just what we think they are, or what we're experiencing. I'm going to read text number, 17 and 18 of this chapter 4 of the Bhagavad Gita. Up to this point, Krishna is for everyone. He's actually teaching. Now, a little example. I don't think it applies as much now, but in India and perhaps in Nepal, it applies still, that when your son gets married, if he does get married, and if he has a wife, and the wife is not familiar. Now, traditionally, the system will be that the wife will come to the son, and they'll probably stay with the parents of the son for at least some time until they're established. So the father and the mother of the boy are not familiar with the girl, and she's not familiar with them particularly. So in order to teach because in India, it's not so common in the West, but in India, the wife, the mother, one of their main activities, one of their main services to the family, which is usually a rather larger family than we have nowadays, will be to cook. Isn't it? Every Indian mother loves to cook. At least they used to. Is that right, Shamananda? You like to? Your wife likes to cook. You also like to cook. Anyone can cook, but especially the mothers like to cook, and they really want to, because the new girl, the daughter-in-law, they really want her to cook nicely for their son, isn't it? The mum's been cooking for her son for the last 25 years or whatever it is, and they don't want him to, they want it to be, because mother's cooking is practically the best, isn't it? Practically. And, the wife's cooking might be almost as good, but it could never quite compare with the mother's cooking. So the mother wants the daughter-in-law to become as good a cook as she is. She knows what her son wants to eat, doesn't she? She knows exactly what he wants to eat and what makes him happy, and she wants her daughter-in-law to do the same thing. It's a natural, loving exchange. But she knows her daughter-in-law may have been trained differently, and maybe has a slightly different idea of things. So the mother, the son's mother, she won't directly tell the daughter-in-law, do this, do that, don't do this, no, not like that. The daughter-in-law may not be very happy with that. So what the mother does, she although her own daughter knows already, she'll be correcting her own daughter or telling her own daughter, no, do like this. And the new girl, the daughter-in-law, will learn. She'll pick it up automatically without being chastised or without being corrected necessarily. It's a very, it's a very nice arrangement. Very simple. Of course, you have to have a daughter in the first place. But, in these big families, there are usually daughters, sons. Nowadays, we have 2 children. It's a lot, isn't it? It's a lot for people now in the West. Average is 1.5 or something in the West now. It's very low. Some countries lower. That means the population will go down. And some families, of course, other groups, they may have 8, 9, 10 children. So the population will be a change in the balance if it carries on like that considerably. Anyway, aside from that, a previous generation, I don't know the elder members here today. I don't know how your father or mothers, I don't know how many they were. My father was one of 9. I don't know if that was common in Australia or in Nepal. It's common. Nothing unusual about that. But and that was in England. It wasn't uncommon for 6, 7, 8, 9 children in the family. 1 mother, 1 father. Nothing uncommon. But now it's very uncommon. Very uncommon. So we go to this verse, and just a little prelude to this chapter. So Krishna is teaching us through his dearmost devotee, named Arjuna. Arjuna already is a realized soul. He doesn't need, in one sense, to hear this subject. But he's voluntarily taking the position for our benefit. So he would ask the right questions without any inhibition or foolishness. And the right questions would be answered by the right person, Krishna himself. So in the beginning of this chapter, Krishna describes how this knowledge is to be received. It's to be received what is known in Sanskrit as parampara. Evam parampara praptam. It means passed down from one teacher to the next. Just like maybe now it's a little changing because modern society is changing rapidly in so many ways. But for generations after generations, general knowledge was passed down from parents to children. Generally. Especially if you're born like in a family of farmers, you learn farming from the day you come out the womb, practically. It was natural. You just grew up with it. You didn't need to go to college to learn how to farm. You automatically, it was part of it. You may be born with it in you and you're living it. So the knowledge would be automatically disseminated. The children would start cooking. The girls would start cooking with their mother after a few years. they would start helping, doing little chores. They would automatically grow up like that. Now you have to have courses to how to look after babies and so many things. People don't know anything nowadays. They knew how to cure things because they knew nature, they knew herbs, they knew the plants, they knew the trees, they knew everything. It was automatic. You knew if you cut yourself, you know which plant to put on to stop the bleeding, or if you know, whatever it was, you burn yourself. They knew exactly what to do in nature, anyway, if it was available. Now we don't know anything. It's all artificial. So this knowledge was passed down, spiritual knowledge particularly passed down in this disciplic succession from one qualified teacher to a qualified student who will become a qualified teacher. That's how it's passed down. But in course of time, this line had broken, so Krishna said, I've come again to teach it, to teach this knowledge. The knowledge, numinal knowledge, is to know who we are, what our original, where our origins are, and how to achieve or return to our spiritual origins. And Divya, transcendental knowledge. So then Krishna explains how this knowledge is not a new thing, it's eternal. Sometimes people say, well, when was this spoken? Well, you can give a date to when it was recently spoken, like you could say we're speaking a little bit today, but this knowledge existed beyond today. It'd be this beyond, it's eternal knowledge. It's eternal knowledge. Just like if you come in this door, most of you entered that door or that door, but you existed beyond that. Or you're looking out your window, you see a car fly by. But the car existed before it came into your vision, and it exists after it leaves our vision. So spiritual knowledge is there. We may have only come across it at a certain time, but it has existed eternally. Along with the universe, as the Vedas, this knowledge of the universe, Vedas, called Veda. It's like if somebody makes a, well, what do they make nowadays? They make a latest mobile phone. So with the latest mobile phone, there will be a guidebook. Huh? You don't have to sit there for 6 years trying to work out what to do with the thing. You get a guidebook, what to do, how to work it. Huh? So along with the universe, there's a guidebook. It's called the Vedas. People don't accept it in most parts of the world, but in India they do. Most people. The Vedas is a guidebook. How to live properly in this world, how to utilize this human form of life for the most beneficial purposes, the highest purpose. So this is a summary, this is a condensed, you could say, of the whole Vedas, this Bhagavad Gita. What's happening?
He gave a cushion for you.
Oh. Anyone else need a cushion for their feet or for their backs or their whatever else? Back something or another. You okay? Everyone's okay without a cushion? Okay, if you need one, try to get one. So, yes, it captures the essence of all the Vedic scriptures, because later on we read in, not this chapter, a later chapter, Vedaishchasar Vir Eva Vedyo Vedanta Veda Evachaham. The goal of all the Vedas is to know the source of the Vedas. And according to this, Krishna is the source of all the Vedas. He is the source of all the energies. Aham sarvasya prabhuvo matak sarvam pravartate. Everything material and spiritual comes from him, from the supreme loving personality. Yes, there's another topic in of itself. We'll get back to this 4th chapter. So then Krishna explains a little bit about transcendental knowledge, a little bit, and why he comes into this world. Transcendental knowledge is about, we've already mentioned, our own spiritual nature. It's also about the nature of the supreme origin, the supreme person. How even we in this world, although right now we're forgetful, we're like in a dream state, so we forget our normal identity, but actually we're spiritual, we're transcendental in reality. Sometimes we experience, like for instance, you're tuned in, totally tuned into some subject matter, and one becomes oblivious to everything else around you. And sometimes somebody gets our attention, and we're kind of lost. We don't even know where we are. We're so absorbed in something. So we're so absorbed in this material, we've forgotten our normal situation. Or in a dream, we forget our normal situation. But that doesn't mean everybody's in that situation. So Arjuna, Krishna, they're transcendental to this. They're seeing it from a different perspective. Changing our perspective of vision. And here's one topic. So then Krishna goes on to describe that in a bit about the transcendental nature, and how we can realize that transcendental nature is described step by step in this chapter. And one aspect of that we'll find in this 17th verse. Krishna says, and I'll just read the English, the intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is. Now, if we ask somebody now, what do you think action is? Okay, you can just use a word karma, and then I'll say, what's karma? And you'll say action. So we don't get very far there, do we? Oh, you do. I mean, action. But there's more to it than that, isn't there? What would most people say if you say karma? What does it mean? What does it mean? Most people, it's a common word. I was stunned one time. Do you remember when the Twin Towers came down? Some of you were consciously aware of that. How many years ago was that? 24 years ago, my God. So long ago, isn't it? I had an incredible experience, and I won't tell the whole experience, I'll just tell the tail end of it. On that day, I had no idea that the Twin Towers, I was on the road, I was travelling that day. I was travelling from Ireland to Manchester, of all places. And I arrived in Manchester, a roundabout route, on the train from, I flew to Glasgow, then I took a train down to Manchester. Crazy as it sounds. Both were free, so I took advantage of it. And then my brother picked me up in Manchester. And he said, have you heard what's happened? I said, oh, I had no idea what to say. What's happened? Well, I just arrived in Manchester and you picked me up. That's all I know. I don't know anything else that's just happened. So he said, you'll see. And so he drove to his house south of Manchester. And as I walked in the door, the number 2 tower was coming down. Just at that moment. As we walked in. I thought it was a movie on the television. I didn't realize until everyone was, oh my gosh. There was like 8 of the family members sat there all stunned. And my brother said, he was a complete agnostic. He had no belief in, any of this stuff. He said, my God, that's some karma, he said. That's some karma. It just came straight out of his mouth. Where did you get that from? People all over the world have got some idea of karma. And even atheists, they can't get God out of their mind sometimes. They hate him, but they don't want to get him out of their mind. They want to get him out of their mind, but he won't leave. Anyway, karma. So that's one way of looking at it. But go further. What is karma? Daily activities, okay. We're very practical. I mean, I don't know if that's everything, is it? I mean, daily activities. The Twin Towers coming down. Is that our daily activity? I hope not. In one sense it is, but there's more to it, isn't there?
How about things that we do from our mind, body,
Things we do for the what?
using our mind, body. So
Using our mind and body. Okay, that's all good. Anyone else? Come on. You're very enthusiastic, I must say.
Just trying to cover it for everybody.
Yeah, you're doing your best. You're doing really well. Anybody else?
What, karma or action or what?
Well, that you have to say, karma. I asked what was karma, and Natalie said action, so that's where we go.
Results of your action.
Okay, a lot of people will say that, won't they? It is actually endeavor activity also. And a lot of people will say it's the results of your action, isn't it? Oh boy, I've got real bad karma, isn't it? I'm suffering. Even the West, whether people understand it much or not, they still say it a lot. That's really bad karma. I mean, isn't it? You come across that?
I saw in Byron Bay in a bookshop, there was a little sign on the
Amazing, huh? Stealing is bad karma. There you go. People, ordinary, well, not say ordinary, everyone's special, but I mean, persons who are not necessarily practicing spiritual practices and may not have studied these things, but still they've heard about this and they understand it is correct. Stealing is, well, you could go further than that, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, the idea of action is involves the concept of cause and effect, in that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction.
Yeah.
That's the nature of the world.
Nature of life. Everything scientific is a scientific conclusion. It's not some, cult idea or some, Hindu idea or something. It's a scientific fact that every breath we take has a reaction. Is there in everything that exists? There's everything moving creates a reaction, and that creates a reaction. Everything's going on like this. A nice definition of karma, from the practical point of view, I would say, Prabhupada gives this, our teacher gives this definition. Activity which leads to the future development of material bodies. Talking now not so much from the universal, atomic, but from the personal point of view. Anything which we do which causes us to receive a future material body, whether in this life or the future life. We're talking mostly future life there. And what we've got now is a result of previous karmas. Not just in this life, but in the spiritual sojourn of the soul through the material universes. So that's one angle. One is action, one is the reaction from it, and the other is the combination of the cause and effect between the two. And from the point of view of the soul, there is no karma. We're just experiencing this karmic cycle. Just like when we watch the television, there's a movie on the television, and a midnight movie, and when we were kids, BBC came in, I think it was BBC, there was only one channel. There was no other channels. No Sky TV or whatever you call it, only one. And a midnight, Saturday night, midnight horror movie. Horror movie, I don't know if you had that or not, horror. Scary. Those of nervous disposition are warned that the next program is not recommended. And it's like, you get really affected by it. There's nothing happening, it's just some fictional thing on the screen. But we get so overwhelmed with the whole thing. Oh, there's a love scene, and you get, the ladies particularly get, they get all worked up about it. Or there's a sports match. People, I know, factually know that they're watching football, people have been killed just over the football match watching it on TV. They killed, I read it, when I was younger, the husband killed the wife because the wife tried to turn the television off in the middle of the World Cup final. He stabbed her to death and carried on watching the TV. It's all over the newspapers. Madness. They weren't even in the stadium. She wouldn't have been there anyway, but, just on the television. She wanted to watch Coronation Street or something, and, he wasn't into it. And they fought, and then he whammed her. Hell, this is nonsense, but this is what's going on in the world. We're fighting over that. That's what's actually happening. It may not be a TV, it's the external terrible vision that we have. And these things are going on, but we get so affected by what we see and the reaction to what we see, even though ultimately we can understand the television, what is it? But still it affects us so much, we get captivated and carried away by it like this. This is just an example how we get carried away, and then we react to that karma, and we create more reaction. You get angry, and you create more reaction. It gets worse rather than better. There's no education here. So karma is one thing, but the karma is more than just that. This is described in the next verse, or then this verse is also mentioned. 3 words are mentioned. Let's see, in this next verse, I think. Where are we? Yes, 3 words are mentioned. There's karma, There's akarma. And there's vikarma. Karma is divided into three. It's not just one. Most people only know one. To some extent. It may not be very deep what their understanding is. They don't understand perhaps the bigger picture, but they have some understanding. But there's three types of karma mentioned here. In this verse it said, what is action, what is forbidden action, and what is inaction. If we ask you what inaction, the Sanskrit word is akarma, what would you say is inaction? Most people would say doing nothing. Good, huh? Do nothing. A lot of people were kind of attracted to that, do nothing. Yeah? Okay, that's a practical devotional approach to it in one sense, or it doesn't go into necessarily a description of the effects of our karma. It's the nature of a karma that one would do that. But in terms of most people's idea, it will be to do nothing. But how can you do nothing? What do you have to do nothing? You have to try to do nothing, right? It's an endeavor to do nothing in itself. It's hard work doing nothing. You're actually actively trying to do nothing.
There's no such thing as...
There's no such thing as doing nothing. It doesn't exist. But we try for it. So you're actually you're trying to control your mind, you're trying to control your body, you're trying to control your hunger, you're trying to control your breath. I mean, breathing is something. It means you can't breathe. You've got to stop the blood system. You've got to stop everything. You know, you're dead. But even then, that's not the goal of that. Yes, you had a point?
Action that doesn't result.
Oh, no, you're too spiritual. Get off the spiritual platform. Go back to the mundane world, please. But that's it. You can't be inactive entirely. How long can you sit without breathing? I said to one devotee yesterday, a little breathing exercise to help them to calm down a little bit. 6 seconds breathe in, just relax. Hold your breath for 12 seconds. They said, I can't do that. Just 12 seconds they couldn't do it. No problem with that. But I mean, how long can we go without breathing? Maybe a minute. I don't know how long you can go. Travel Mongol's trying now. She's experimenting here. Don't try too hard, please. Got a lot to offer the world yet. And drinking. How long can you go without drinking water? Very difficult, isn't it? Or without a thought coming in your mind. How many seconds can you go without a thought suddenly appearing in the mind? Pretty hard, huh? So what is that? Inaction. It's not just physical, it's mental also. Where is the inaction? Can't do it. So now we're going to come to the spiritual line. Our friend here from Brisbane, they're all very spiritually advanced in Brisbane, I think he's got the answer here. What did you say?
Action that doesn't result in material
reaction. Wow, does that sound good or not? Action that does not result in a reaction of the material sort. Does that sound good? Doing something which has no material reaction. Maybe it doesn't sound good. Maybe you only want good karma, right? You do something, you don't get any goodness, not just bad karma, you don't get any good karma either. We all want good karma, isn't it? People go to church, please forgive me for my bad karma, right? They think actions are bad activity. They don't say, please forgive me for my good ones. Have you ever heard anyone pray like that? My dear Lord, please forgive me for all the good things I've done. I never heard anyone pray like that, and at least, maybe some elevated souls with another understanding. But generally, religiously speaking, nobody prays. You don't go to the church, the temple, Krishna, whoever you worship, pray like that. You want good karma, don't you? Go, come get back down to earth. Back to earth, yes.
I brought the little boy today.
Pardon?
I brought the little boy.
Yeah, Neha.
So
Back to
he
Neha.
went to Krishna on his birthday. So hopefully to get some blessings.
Oh, he'll get lots of blessings.
Yeah.
He's a blessed child. He's come in front of Radha Gokulananda. He's heard the holy name. Maybe he'll take a little prasadam. He's met devotees. Very, very, very good fortune. So this, yeah, okay, carry on.
Sorry.
I know where you're going. Just carry on.
That's transcendental to see Krishna.
Yeah, it's not like just going into a shop and showing him toys or, whatever it is, or sweets. You brought him to the temple. Although there may be some different intent of doing that, but he's getting, you could say, he's getting a little drop, whatever the reason is. It may be a gata sakriti, by good fortune, whatever, without his knowledge in one sense, but he's getting this blessing. He's getting a touch of what akarma means. He's seeing Krishna. When you see Krishna, it clears up all the other types of karmas. When he takes prasadam, that food has no reaction. When you eat, every grain of rice, every drop of every vegetable we eat, it may be good or it may not be good. Obviously, eating vegetables and fruits is better karma than it is eating meat or liquor. But they're both karma. They're both karma. So when you take food which is offered to Krishna, there's no karma. Krishna himself says, I take that away. I free you of that karma by offering it to Krishna. So that child, or any one of us, this is a simple example of akarma. And akarma is not just a manufacture, it's actually given what that is for an activity to become inaction. The word inaction is used. In other words, you're acting, but there's no reaction to your activity, materially speaking. Now yes, what is your good name?
Linda.
Linda?
Yeah,
Linda.
thank you. Yeah, I was just wondering then, it sounds like your intention plays a big part.
Our intention is a big part.
Intention, so that, whether the action is perceived as good or bad, what is really mattering is the intention. Because if you're offering that to Krishna and that food's been offered, or you're offering yourself or your own action, then
Indeed, our intention is a big part. It's a very important part indeed. But even if we don't have the intention, it's like, say, for instance, someone gives us medicine. You don't have any intent. You don't even know it's medicine. You had no intention. But if it's actually medicine, it can still have a beneficial effect upon us. So even if the intention is not necessarily in that direction, but if some or other we happen to come across or come into contact with this transcendental personality, or in this case we just mentioned food offered to Krishna, one gets the benefit. Of course the person giving intends to try to give us that benefit, yes.
Was it Brett from the Bhakti Tree?
Brett, yeah.
He was saying that at the beginning when he first tried prasadam, they were giving it for a very small cost, and he thought, I'm going to take advantage of these guys, and he eat more and more. He's like, I thought they were idiots, I'll take more and more. So it's like, he even though his initial intention wasn't, like...
Yeah, he was trying to get free food for dirt cheap, you see? Free food. But eventually, the effect of that was that, his heart changed, his consciousness changed, his perception and his intention changed. Whatever intention is, that can change. This is a very big topic in of itself. We don't have time to delve in it. But it's a fact. Our intention is very important. And if you have the right intention, or we have a desire to have the right intention, then for sure we'll come along that path. And when we have a right intention, you're not going to do anything which is going to create, let's say, harm other living entities. You're always going to act for the welfare of others. There's one more word used here, we're finished on that, it's called vikarma. What is vikarma? And then we put the three together. What is vikarma? This is a very unusual word. Now, you've heard of karma, maybe not akarma. Some people have some idea. But vikarma, this one is not generally discussed. What is vikarma?
Unpious things.
Pardon?
Unpious things like against the like bad things.
You could summarize it as bad things, but then you could summarize karma as bad things. You could summarize it as karma, good, bad, it's all, everything. So vikarma is specifically, go a little further. Anyone? Karma, vikarma. What's the difference?
Very bad karma.
Okay, very bad. Maybe.
Impious activity.
Yeah, not wrong. I think it's, but go a little bit more definitive. What's the difference between karma and vikarma? They're both reactionary, by the way. Only our karma helps us to transcend karma. But karma and vikarma, what's the difference? Who's that? Okay, now we're getting to something else. Who decides? Now we're going on to another platform, also totally different platform, isn't it? Who decides? Say, for instance, someone's just claimed you've stolen something from a shop and you got arrested. You may have not done it, or you may have done it. What's the next step?
Authorities.
Yeah, okay, you have to go, maybe you have to go in front of a court or something, is it? And there's a judge and maybe a jury or something, and they decide whether you're guilty or not guilty, isn't it? You don't decide. Even the person who arrests you doesn't decide. Neither does a shopkeeper. They may be right, you may be right, they may be wrong. But you go to the court, and the court is the authority to adjudicate, isn't it? Whether you're right or whether you're wrong. So according to that, this activity is right and this activity is wrong. They're both activities. One is okay, one is not okay. So who is the authority to decide what is sin and what is not sin? You go to some countries and drinking liquor is very much encouraged, is even part of their practices. You go to another country, you get punished if you drink liquor. You go to one country, every country has its own different laws. Every religion has its own different laws. So who actually makes these decisions? Yeah, the people make it right now. But is that an absolute rule? It's not an absolute rule. If you go to some countries, you get arrested for doing something which you did in another country. For instance, if you take ganja berries, we worship the Lord with this particular berry. Ganja berry is not the drug; it's the little berry, and this represents Radharani. We worship Krishna, worshipping Krishna with the ganja berries. You take those ganja berries into some Middle Eastern countries, you get arrested. It's illegal.
You get executed.
Pardon?
You get executed.
They can execute you. Totally different rule. I mean, we don't have to go into that. You know this. In certain countries, the rules are very different to what they are in other countries. Even driving. I mean, you drive here on what side of the road do you drive here? Left side. Left side, like England. Huh? But you go to America, you can't do that. Different rule. Different rules are there in different places. They're not absolute rules. They're relative rules, which have their significance. But we're talking of absolute rules. Karma is not a relative rule. The infallible laws of karma. You can't have a meeting and say, okay, we've decided to change the laws of karma. From now on, you get a good reaction for killing somebody. You can't do that. It's infallible. It's beyond human. It's God's laws for this world. The same in the prison. There are laws. You can do what you like to try to avoid them, but there are laws, and if you get caught, you have to answer for it. So the karma is the law of God in this world, and that is given to us. It's given to us particularly through the Vedas. Other scriptures give it, but unfortunately, many times it's changed. They've changed the laws. You can't do that. You can't change the laws of God. It doesn't work like that. Not possible. Even if you do change the law, still the law works. You can get your gang of thieves together and say, well, okay, who thinks that stealing is good? Everyone's hand will go up. But it doesn't make it good. It doesn't mean, well, wait a minute, we voted it was okay, you can't arrest us. Of course we can arrest you. Because, you're not the authority. There's an authority in this universe, and it's not me. It's not us. This is the kingdom of God, they say. There's no authority there. So karma, the laws, infallible laws of justice, we could say. But they're universal. They're not just some regional thing or some sectarian thing. They're absolute for everyone. They're scientific as well, which we heard earlier. So there's karma, And karma, in this definition, means activities. We're still attached. They're still reactionary. We're still attached in this world. And we're still doing things. But those act for ourselves or for our community. But those activities are done along the lines of the authority. Just like in Australia, if you drive according to the highway code, you don't get arrested. If you drive according to the law. But if you drive against the law, you may get fined or arrested or in an accident. You follow the law, nobody's going to bother you, normally. So karma, that's karma. You're still in Australia, you're still driving your car, you're still in the material world. But it is, it's not a bad reaction as such. And you can, if you follow it properly, one progresses on the path of awareness or consciousness, one evolves. Following the right directions, one grows up. Could be said with education, anything could be used as an example. And vikarma is when you go against that rule. Just like if I don't care about a red light, I'm just going to drive straight over, boom, which some people do. You know, whatever, you may get fined or something, or you accident, whatever. It's vikarma. It's against the scriptures, the word that Kaliya used there, against the authority, against the scripture. Is vikarma. There's advice. Everyone has material desires. Everyone has various things they want to do and has to do or has a nature. And there's a way of doing that in a way which gradually we can advance, we can progress. And there's a way of doing it in a way that will become, we create a different reaction, an unfortunate one. And unfortunately, most people are engaged in vikarma, not karma. Mostly. Who is following? We make our own. Drug taking is fine. We had a vote. It's okay now. You don't have to worry. You won't get fined anymore. Whatever it is, we make these different rules up. So many rules, which we man-made. But that's not going to help. This is vikarma. And that results of a bondage in this material world, deeper and deeper bondage. So what we're trying to do, what Krishna's trying to help us, encourage us to do here, what our spiritual master Srila Prabhupada, is to try to give, even whatever we are, even if we're absorbed in vikarma, sinful activity, or activity against the guidelines for human beings, whatever it is, it'll be different for different types of human beings, but we're acting against it. But he's trying to give us this chance, this golden chance, to engage in akarma, which is, in simple terms, devotional service to Krishna, bhakti yoga. So we invite you all, please, to take this on board. If you've got the Bhagavad Gita, good on you. How many of you have got this Bhagavad Gita as it is? How many of you have got it? Anyone? Besides the regular devotees in the temple, you should, I presume you've got it. Any of our guests here today, any of you have Bhagavad Gita? Do you have it in Nepali? Nepalese?
No, just now coming.
Huh?
It's possibly arrived today.
Just now coming. So you stay here until it comes, okay? Don't go anywhere. It should come today, okay. It should have come yesterday as well. But anyway, it should come today. It might even arrive today. You might be lucky. It might arrive today. But we have it in English? Do we have it in English? English and Hindi, maybe. Some of you read Hindi. Yes.
They come here some more. They'll come again, and then they can get Bhagavad Gita if they don't have it today.
Yeah. Some of them have been before. How many of you have been here before? Hands up. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5 or 6. So quite a few have been here before. They're all from Nepal, from Newcastle, you're from Paxton? From Paxton. And your name is? Anna. Anna? Yeah. Anna from Paxton and Linda from near Newcastle. You have a chat with Sarva afterwards. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You've all got the same smile. You must be getting on. You'll get on well with each other. Get this. I mean, this is the, we spend so much money. I mean, you probably spent a few dollars getting here today, which is nice. Maybe you came by car or horse or something or another. I don't know what you used to get here. But it costs money, petrol. You probably spend a lot of money on other things too, food and housing and clothing and all the other stuff which is not absolutely essential, but we kind of need nowadays, mobiles and computers and all kinds of this, that, and the other fancy things to enjoy with. So much money we spend. And then, oh, no time. And we spend so much time on WhatsApp and things. No time to read this. No money to buy this. Yeah? What an investment. Eternal life, happiness, peace, unity. You know? Isn't that what we want? Love, peace, unity, eternity. You know? Happiness, what's the difficulty? What's the difficulty? Utilize our energies like this, and not only is it, let's say, good, but it can help us to realize who we are and be satisfied and bring happiness to others and peace to this troubled world that we live in on the spiritual platform. And we realize every one of us are equal spiritually. Every living entity. Not just humans, animals, birds, we're all spiritually equal. Trees, we're all spiritually equal. Materially we're different, but spiritually equal. This is the realization. Vidyavanaya sampani brahmani gavi hashtani, Krishna says. Those who are on this, have this vision, see with equal vision dogs, elephants, people, trees, whatever it is, because they understand the spiritual presence there. Hare Krishna. So this is just a touch of the wonders of the Bhagavad Gita. So simple, but unknown to most people. You don't read it in the daily news or CNN. Do you read that? What do you read? What do you hear on CNN? What do you read? Is that the news thing? CNN? World News? Is that right? What do you hear about?
Just only what's going on every day, same story.
Same damn thing, isn't it? 200 people die here, 100 people die there, so-and-so born there, so-and-so, did this and that and this and that. And something, an earthquake here, a tidal wave there, whatever. Political uprising there. All kinds of stuff, isn't it? Every day the same thing, just different names, different places, different colours. The same little thing going on. And you make a massive issue, isn't it? Every day, say a plane crashes. Once in a while that happens. 50, 100, 200 people die. It's like, whoa, oh, terrible, terrible. And the whole country is mourning. Did you know that 300,000 humans die every day? You don't read that in a newspaper. Did you know that 150 children are aborted every day in the womb? You don't read that in a newspaper. Did you know that 8 billion fish are killed every day for human consumption? You don't read that in the newspaper. These things are daily realities of material world. And we make a big issue of 50 or 100 dying, but there's 300,000 humans on average dying every day on this planet, maybe more or less, every day. It's such a shame that their whole life is vikarma in most cases, and getting a reaction which means worse than what we've got now. And that's the situation. Let's try to do something about it. Let's try to help society. Let's try to help others. Because everyone is spiritually equal. So no matter what they think, say, or do, everyone has the same spiritual quality, just covered over with various degrees of ignorance. Happy birthday, Neha. Hare Krishna, young man. Hare Krishna. Is there a cake for you? Where's his cake? Where's his birthday cake? In the West, they have to have a birthday cake. Or maybe not in Nepal. I don't know.
We organizing some celebration with our friends, family.
Okay, good. That's nice. That's very nice. Very good. Maybe there's a cake for him here. I don't know if there's something. Give him something. Thanks for coming. Thanks for bringing your family along. Actually, he brought you along.
Yeah.
Because of you come, right? Basically, because it's his birthday. So you brought the whole family.
Hopefully we'll come every year.
Well, more than that. We would like to you come more than that. Regular as you can, not just every year. Come more and more and more. And I'm sure if you talk to some of the locals here that they can arrange program. I mean, I think we should have a program. There's thousands of Nepali people living in Newcastle area. Did you know that? Pardon? Nepalese. Yesterday I think there's about 20 Nepalese here. Today, again, another about 15 or 20 Nepali people, all from Newcastle area.
It is flooding even in Sydney.
Huh?
It's flooding up even in Sydney past
I can't hear. What was that?
In Sydney. Sydney
Sydney
is
also
many.
too many.
We've got lots of Nepalese people coming, even in Sydney as well. It's
Is it?
flooded, yeah.
Yeah.
Flooded with
Nice,
Nepalese
nice
people
one.
these days. They're very
They're coming down from the mountains. They're all coming down from the mountains.
More Nepalese here in Australia than in Nepal now.
Yes, you hear what?
It's more Nepalese living in Australia than Nepal.
More?
Nepalese living in Australia.
More the way it's going, it might be. But they're all over. Even in France, there's so many Nepalese people now. There were none 20 years ago. Now there's hundreds and thousands of them, even in France.
They're going to help make the world peaceful.
Yeah, that's a fact. The Himalayas, have any of you been, other than the Nepalese, have any of you been to the Himalayas? Have you been up there? Emma's been to the Himalayas. You've been to the Himalayas? Isn't it amazing? It's absolutely stunning. You can't but have such a deep reverential, it creates humility that how great these mountains are. They're the greatest mountains on the planet, the Himalayas. You been there, Sarah Magal? Himalayas? Pardon? Himalayas. Yeah.
I'm not very good at geography. I'm not quite sure.
Mount Everest. Kathmandu. You know if you north of India.
I wanted to go to Nepal, but I never
Never went,
got
huh?
to go.
You go to the foothills. You go to Rishikesh, Hardware. That's right at the
I've been to
base. That's right at the base. That's like the foothills before the Himalayas. Yeah, yes, going up. That's going high up.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. Anyway, we want your son to go back to Godhead in this lifetime. It's your responsibility. You have to, someone are given the opportunity to engage in akarma, spiritual activity. Please bring him here regularly. Maybe you can arrange a program with the local devotees for the Nepali community.
They're going to come every month.
We have programs. We have like individual groups that we teach. Like I also run a Bhakti Vriksha, Bhakti Shastri, so we have. And then there's a lot of people now joining the group, and we are planning to do here as well. And then we're actually also
nice.
at midday we also have classes.
Great.
And lots of devotees.
In Newcastle?
In Newcastle we also do. We've got a Bhakti tree, but
They're not doing it there now at the moment. They're not doing. That's what should be. You can get a hall, a nice hall, and for the Nepali, you can gather all the Nepali community together. Have a nice program. Is it? Why not?
We're starting here again in temples.
Do it. Don't just do it. Just do it. Okay. Just do it. Okay. And in Paxton, we have to have a program in Paxton. Paxton. Are there Nepalis in Paxton? There is Nepalis in Paxton. Wonderful. Were you there at the program in Newcastle the other day?
Was it Tuesday?
Tuesday, yeah. I thought I saw you there. Yeah, Did you have a good time? You like the dancing? Really nice, relaxed. Under the surface, we're all looking for the same thing. We argue about the surface, but if we go underneath the surface, there's nothing really to argue about. We just have to share what we are. It's not a big issue. We fight over these surface things. Okay, now, happy birthday. I'm going to go now, young man. Hare Krishna. See you soon.
Will I be able to check?
Yeah, bring him over here.
Just give him some
Come on.
It'll be lovely to
Hey, come on.
be close to you.
Maybe we can give us some, I don't know what we can give him. I don't know. Huh? Garland, yeah, give him a garland. Yeah, come on, boy. Let's see how good your crying is. Let's see how good your voice is. You'll be a good singer. Come. Come on. Where's the camera? Hey, the camera's over there, boy.
You want to sit here?
Are you good? You good there?
No.
Hey, that's good. Look, who's that there? Look who's there. Haribo, Neha. Haribo. Hare Krishna.
All right. G got it, Papa. G.
Good boy. Oh! Take him to see Krishna.